Alright, so in today's video we're going to be taking a look at a pair of double O scale level crossing signals with working LED and matching control board by a company called We Honest LTD. And I'll add a link to where to buy these in the description below, as well as chapter markers as always if you want to jump around. So I am not affiliated with these guys. I stumbled across them on accident when trying to find some platform lights for my layout. And each one of the signs was $9 a piece, and I think this control board was like $8, and it's pretty cool, very well thought out. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to take a chance. They arrived a week later, which is amazingly fast. And you know what, they're pretty good. There's some issues with them, definitely some room for improvement. But I think they're going to look pretty great on my layout, since I was looking for a design or a specific signal design that looks just like this. So let's go ahead and put this box to the side, and we'll zoom in here and we'll take a closer look at what these look like. So you can see they look, you know, pretty decent. I grew up in a small town in Aberystwyth in North Wales, and in order to get to Aberystwyth Sands, you have to cross over a level crossing that had signs that looked just like these. There was no barrier crossing, since that's how we rolled in the 80s, and I really wanted something like this on my layout, and they were surprisingly hard to find, so I was pretty stoked when I came across these. Now, if you take a look at the checkered area around the sign, you notice there's kind of a blob of white paint here. And that's kind of a shame, because I'm going to have to come in and fix this with a little red paint here and a little silver across the top. And then if we look at the lights, or excuse me, the signs below the lights, you know, the text looks okay. Some of the issues I guess you could chalk up to weathering, but you know, it could be better done. If we look at these close up, you can see a similar situation. So if we look at this guy here on the right, come on camera, we can see that the checkered area around the sign looks pretty great, but the signs below have some missing letters. So right here, the L and the I has not been stamped very well. And then on the left hand, the signs here look great, but we're missing a little bit of gray paint here. And you know, this red checkered mark here is going to have to be fixed. Now, if you're not a modeler, you might go, well, you know, it's not a big deal, but actually it is, because when we take our cameras close up on our layouts and take pictures, these really start to stand out as you get down to scale level. So you really want to have details like this taken care of. But again, not the end of the world, something that can be fixed. Now, if you're not comfortable with soldering, most of the work has been done for you. You'll notice there are two red wires that cover the red alternating lights. You've got your common that goes in the middle, and then finally you have a yellow wire that matches the yellow LED. And in fact, the resistor has already been soldered on ahead of time, so there's really nothing to do other than to hook this directly up to the control board. Now, the wires are thin, but they're relatively strong, so don't have to think you have to worry about breaking it. But let's go ahead and take a look at the control board. Now, the board here is pretty well thought out. If you took a look here on the right hand side, this is two different ways to power the signals, and you've got the blue connector here on the left, which is probably what you'd hook to your power bus on a DCC layout like mine, and it supports between 6 and 24 volts. And on the right hand side here, you have the option to hook up a DC adapter, which supports 3 and 5. On the top here, you have a jumper that has 3 volts and 12 volts, and the 3 volts is if you're using LEDs, because you can buy this board on your own if you're doing your own custom stuff. But the right supports 3 volts for LEDs and 12 volts for incandescent bulbs on the left. Finally, you have your FR adjuster. And what this does is just adjust the speed of the flashing lights. Since in the US the lights tend to flash slower, so you want to bring down that speed a little bit. And then if you're modeling European signals like I am, then you want the flashing rate to be a bit higher. Down here we have a dimmer switch, and you can just push this in and out. And it has 4 different dimmer settings. The lowest setting looks better on camera, but the highest setting looks better in person. Now, this feature here is kind of nice, and this stands for jumper yellow. And what this is talking about is, if you're not familiar with British level crossing signs, they have 3 different lights. Go ahead and adjust the camera here. The bottom one turns orange, you know, / yellow first, indicating to the driver, I assume, that the lights are about to, you know, kick on. And then finally, the red lights will indicate and alternate back and forth when danger is approaching. Really not that different than what we have in the US. And so what they do is they allow you, if you're going to, you know, if you're let me get my brain working here. If you're modeling European signals, then you would put the jumper on, and if you're modeling American signals, you just let the jumper hang on one of the pins. Now down here you have additional connectors depending on the type of situation you have on your layout, and in my case I'm using the sockets at the end here. And it's pretty easy to set up. So these are basically mirrored, and if you look at this kind of line here in the middle, you can see there's a four pin connector on the right and 4 on the left, or socket, depending on what you want to call it. And you put your yellow wire here, and it says Y, and then you have your red wire, your common, and your red, and then it's kind of mirrored on the other side, and you have yellow, red, common, red, and because the resistors are already in place, there's really nothing else for you to do. Hook those up, drill it through your layout, do all the usual stuff, and you're good to go. So I've hooked up this guy here, just a little modified 9-volt power hookup. And we'll go ahead and stick this guy in here so we can look at what these look like. And look at that. Not too shabby. Let me just tilt these up a little bit so you can see them better. I mean, look, that's pretty good, right? Now, here's one of the complaints that I have. Let me just go ahead and pull these back, and I'm actually going to zoom out for a second here. If I disconnect the power here, I want you to pay attention to the yellow light. Okay, let's go ahead and zoom back in. There we go. I think that's a bit of a better angle there. Notice how the yellow light turns on for just a fraction of a second. So in the real world, prototypically, that would be on for quite a bit longer. Now, I don't know the exact time, but I mean, when it flashes that quickly, it's essentially worthless, right? We want HO or 00 scale, but I'm not sure we want 00 time. And so unfortunately, at least so far as I can tell, there's no way to adjust that like you can with the red light. So that's a bit of a shame. But nevertheless, better than nothing. I'll go ahead and flip this over, this little control board, and I'll show you the different dim settings. So that's the lowest setting. We'll go ahead and take it up a notch and up one more notch, and then finally the brightest setting. And then I'm going to go ahead and take a little flathead screwdriver and we will adjust the flash rate. So if we take it to this side, this gets a little intense, and then we take it in the other direction, and it looks like a tired old American railroad signal at that speed, right? So kind of cool. So you have a reasonable amount of flexibility, and I would say, all things considered, if you add a little bit of weathering to this, which I plan to do, pop them on the layout with everything else, maybe put a little tree next to it or something, I think you would have a reasonably prototypical looking set of level crossing signals. So hopefully you found this useful. Again, I'll put the link in the description if you want to pick these up. We are not affiliated with them at all. I just think for $9 a piece, these are pretty great and will look, I think they'll be a nice addition to Pendulum Station. So thanks so much for watching today. Hope you have a great rest of your month. Hope to see you on the next video. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.